And we are live, back with the Jaylee Show. I'm your host, Jay Ludgrove, and each week we sit down with business owners and brands across the world, and we talk about how things are going in business and maybe some tips and tricks along the way. This week we have the awesome Andy Foote. Thank you for joining us, sir.
It's 10 a.m. On the hour in North Chicago, the US of A.
So that sounds like a traditional Chicago accent. How do you find yourself in the States?
Yeah. So the Americans will get this, the Brits less. So I say that I put on this accent to sound sophisticated and intelligent. I'm actually from the South Side, and I usually then follow it up with "So go Sox." Yeah. So the story is usually about a woman, I think, right? A woman that you meet, you fall in love with, and then she drags you kicking and screaming to another world, a world that we only knew perhaps via the silver screen, right? That was my first introduction to the States. And you get here and it's no different. No, it's it's a lot different. I mean, we could talk for hours about the language not being the same, not at all, that you actually have to change the way that you speak. Think about that. Change about thinking just the way that you use certain words, not necessarily, learning a new, I was going to say accent, but yeah. So I'll give you an example. My daughter is called Catherine, right? And we'll call her Katie. And whenever I mention her in the presence of Americans, they'll say something along the lines of, "Oh, Casey, that's a nice name." No, it's Katie. And so now what's happening there is, and this is true, 9 times out of 10, I get this. What's happening is that Americans are looking for duh. If they don't hear KD, then they'll immediately go to the instead of the t. And it's bizarre. It's like, no, it's Katie. So if I want to make myself understood, I have to start pronouncing my daughter's name like this: Katie, Katie, KT. KT. So yeah. It's so, and then the other thing that happens once you've been over for a while, I think if you're a Brit, is that you start to become more Americanized, less English sound, less British sounding. Sure. And what happens sometimes there is I get mistaken for, oh, you're a Kiwi.
You got to be Kiwi, or you're an Aussie.
Yeah, I know. Why go with the Kiwi? Why just say, why not? And I don't know. Maybe Kiwis are more. Maybe it's Flight of the Conchords, right? Taika Waititi. I don't know. So that's some other stuff that's going on. It's all good. So yeah, I fell in love with my now wife. We actually met in London, and
how long have you been in America now?
We agreed to settle in the States. So, goodness, it must be at least 12 years now. Yeah. She'll
fully integrated.
Well, can you take the boy out of the UK? I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. Yeah. I do have a friend called Benny King, who has lived all over the world and is currently living in Florida as a tattoo artist. And I think the British might have gone out of him. But he lived in Spain for so long that he speaks the King's Spanish. So they got the same thing. A bunch of people in Florida, they're talking to him, and they're like, "Okay, what is this Kiwi?" And then he brings out a real King Spanish, and they're like, "Whoa, who is this guy?"
Yeah, Benny King. I love his music.
Yeah, right.
It's the words. I'm a wordsmith. I can't help it. Sorry, Jay.
So look, you help people, and I've been following for a while. LinkedIn is a wonderful place, and with the way the world is right now, there's a lot of people looking to change careers or for new careers or a career, and LinkedIn is obviously a really, really, really powerful place to do that. How do you help people? Tell us a little bit about what you do. How do you help people with that?
Yeah, so primarily it's helping people with their digital presence via the LinkedIn platform. That's it in a nutshell. It's helping them to understand, the impact or the consequences of some of the marketing / branding decisions that they make. And a lot of the time, it's hard for them because, people people don't know marketing. They don't know how to run their own website. They don't know how to, basically digitally make things happen. And that's the issue. That's the problem with LinkedIn. It's not necessarily a complex website, but it does demand, right? I mean, thank goodness, right? Because then I'd have absolutely nothing to do if it was so simple and so intuitive. But thankfully, it is, it is moderately easy or difficult depending on what you're doing. So yeah, people are not familiar with the platform. I am. I've been on it for so long now, and I like to think that I've got some techniques that can help you with your objectives, whatever they are. Whether you're a job seeker, or you're someone who's trying to get promoted, or you're looking to move, or you're launching a business, blah blah blah. It's all about presence, branding, and some kind of strategy behind it, networking, and then how do you actually get LinkedIn to work for you. It's no good just putting stuff on LinkedIn, be it your profile or writing a post and then sitting back and expecting great things to happen. That's never going to work. There's more to it than that, and the more to it is what I help my clients with.
Really interesting. You mentioned being promoted there. I was talking to someone last couple of days on LinkedIn I posted a video about imposter syndrome, and they sent me a message and said, like, I don't want to post this because I don't want to put that out there because I'm actually connected with a lot of my bosses. And I was saying, no, that's why you should, because there isn't anyone out there. Well, there isn't anyone, as far as imposter syndrome goes as a concept, there isn't anyone who hasn't felt it at one point. So, but it was like posting personal content, one of the easiest ways, one of the best ways to build your brand. And your bosses, your C-level, the president of the company, whatever, them seeing you as a human more so than someone else, and even if it's seeing that you're vulnerable, isn't a bad thing. Isn't something that's going to be detrimental to you. In fact, that is ways of getting a promotion. So tell me about that, right? Someone wants a promotion. What's the first thing that you look at that most people are doing just desperately wrong, just like dirtly wrong?
Yeah. Well, before I go to the most common mistake that I happen to see about imposter syndrome, there's a version of that certainly in the States, and it's called Midwest humility, where essentially it's like, oh, I'm not too comfortable with this sort of pushy, I am the big I am, and self-promotion, and it just doesn't feel right. And what I say to my clients is that, well, let's get over that. And guess what? You will quickly get over that once you realize that it's pretty comfortable. I mean, you're not boasting. You're basically stating factually how good you are and what it is you do. Well, look at it like that from that perspective. And secondly, no one else is going to do this for you, my friend, right? You're going to have to do this yourself. And thirdly, everyone else is doing it. The people that are getting ahead, getting the interviews, having the doors open, they're all doing this, right? They might be doing it to a lesser or greater extent than the next guy or gal, but they're all doing it. So those three reasons usually are persuasive. In terms of mistakes, the most common one, Jay, is quite important, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But I see people sort of struggling with their headshot, not knowing, understanding how best to present, facially.
Yeah.
So there are lots of things that folks are, some strange decision making going on. Let's put it that way, or maybe maybe no thinking at all. It's like, oh yeah, I just put this thing on, that'll do. Yeah, just leave that up. No, it's important because there are three things that that folks see when you are active on LinkedIn, when you're in the LinkedIn Commons, right?
Okay.
When you appear on search, when you are listed in a group, or you're listed in comments. So generally, whenever you're active on LinkedIn, there are three things. The three things are your headshot, your name, and your headline. So think of those three things as your calling card, right? Now, that calling card has to work for you. Break down the components of that. The face is the biggie, right? It's that big circle that it's going to have to do some work. Is it you? Yeah. Does it look like you? Is it recent? If you walk in a pub, walk into a meeting, are people going to recognize you from your LinkedIn photo? If not, change that sucker. Make sure it's current. right? Because this
how often do you see
authenticity.
it that it's a wedding photo, a photo from a wedding?
Yes,
So often it's
or the
great because
yeah,
I look good that
right.
day, and it's like, yeah, but you've got
I know.
sunglasses on and you're smoking a cigarette and
Yes,
you're at a distance in like a
right.
three-piece ridiculous suit.
Yeah, and it's the bad lighting as well. If you've got a shiny forehead or you're in shadow, yeah, it's not that hard to get right either. I did mine. My current headshot is a selfie. It was probably number 78 that morning in the bathroom, but because I have an iPhone X, because I use portrait mode, and I wasn't looking like a complete dick. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to use. I'll go with that, right?
Nice.
So I might look like a complete dick because a lot of this is subjective. Let's be honest. So yeah, you got to get the headshot right. Think about the background, the lighting. There are actually 3 versions of that circle that float around LinkedIn. The smallest is tiny. So
Yeah.
really make that circle face dominant. I want to see at least 70 to 80% of your face in that circle for that very reason.
Like
Your name, I had a nice discussion about this yesterday, which then actually basically was was then spun out into a poll. I put a poll out this morning, and the poll, I'm looking at it right now. It's essentially, here's why I capitalize my name. Here's why I do it. One of the reasons is to stand out, because guess what? Over 95% of folks on LinkedIn, completely made up fact by me, but that's what I believe to be the current sitch. Over 95%. Andy Foote said it, so it therefore must be true.
at least.
Right? No. But look at this yourself and see if I'm right. But most people, vast majority of people, do not capitalize. So I'm going, okay,
Yeah.
I'll capitalize, especially when you're in a list. All right, how do you stand out? Yeah, I mean, you can add emojis, you blah, blah, blah. But if you just capitalize your name, you're not adding emojis. You're not doing anything weird. You're just capitalizing. Now, are you shouting? This was part of the poll. No, you're not shouting. Next time you look at the box, look at the subtitles, all capitalized. Right? Are they shouting? No, we're shouting at the box. It's the other way around. We're shouting. They're not shouting. They're announcing. That's my whole thing is on LinkedIn. It's not a conversation. You're not shouting in a conversation. It's your brand. It's your name. There are plenty of brands out there that are capitalized. Plenty that are, all lowercase. So anyway, long story short, this poll is out, and I've got 25,000 views. It's been out for 3 hours, and what I love more than anything about that poll is it's almost 50-50.
Really?
Now that's wonderful, because that's a debate. That's a continuing debate. It's going to go for another 5 days or so, 6 days or so, and I expect it will be similar, but it's generating a lot of comments, right? So 210 comments, and that's what it's all about. So the name thing, that's the second element of the calling card. The third element, also very important, not quite as important as your headshot, is the headline.
Yes.
So the headline, the default is functional. It'll just grab your job title,
Sure.
and it is what it is. However, you can change that, and you should change that. In my opinion, that should be a slogan. That should be resonating wherever it is, right, with the reader. And it should not just be saying what you do, right, but what you love to do, what you can do for the reader. Think about that in terms of a slogan. So, the job seeker, but as I said, anyone who has, something they need to get done via LinkedIn, think about branding, think about, your presence and what you're doing out there, why you're doing the stuff that you're doing out there. And then think about, what can you see? Because, that's the neat thing about LinkedIn is all of this is public, right? There's a lot of data. If you think about it, a lot of stuff to absorb, and then be analytical. How can you learn, and how can you benefit, leverage it for your own purposes?
And it's like networking groups, and people forget that it's a networking. Any social media network is for networking. And if you went to a networking group full of your peers, you'd ask questions, you'd bullshit about anecdotes and stuff. You'd give your experience and take theirs on as well. I think what you're saying about the poll is really interesting, because it kind of brings us nicely onto content. People are like, cool. So I've got a nice picture. I've changed my title. My first sub headline is all rocking and rolling. What do I post? And obviously try and be yourself. Always, try and put as much of yourself out there. But as you say, it's about starting a conversation. If you can post content that starts a conversation within your network, that exponentially grows. So how do you go about that?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's I think that's the holy grail. Comments are still king, and I think the reason that comments are king is that apart from giving LinkedIn a ton of data, right? So they're going to get more data from you and I engaging endlessly than just you and I liking each other's stuff, excuse me, or resharing each other's stuff. So that's number one. Number two, anything that keeps users on the platform for as long as possible, and more importantly, keeps them coming back to the platform, is essential for LinkedIn's business model to work, right? They need you there on the platform, but they need you active.
Yeah.
So and they want you there so they can serve you ads. That's the deal. So recruiters can sift through your data, right? That's the plan. We are the product in that sense. But in terms of engagement, I'd say look at how others are doing it and figure out a way that works for you. Because I think one thing that a lot of people respond to, it's more important than ever before, I think, is authenticity. And I think what we really can't stand is any kind of fakery, any kind of, and unfortunately, most of the corporates still can't figure this out.
Their head around it, they can't, and they're still embarrassed. They're not embarrassed. Sorry, they're still reticent to allow people within their businesses to be their brands. Like corporates could very easily not be dipping their toe into that side of the world and allowing their employees to do it by just being themselves.
Yeah.
But like you say, there's this kind of like, oof, don't know what's too far. And I think it's cancel culture, left, right, and center, as people don't want to even maybe say something that could be wrong, which would get them shut down, right?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because now, because of COVID, what's happening is that people are now having to put themselves more out there in, outside of the corporate bubble. So they're poking through the corporate bubble. They're having Zooms, and it's hard not to be yourself on a Zoom unless you're going to be a cardboard cutout. Your personality is going to come across, and so a lot of professionals are now being forced to put themselves out there, number one, and number two, in a more sort of real and authentic manner. And I'm hearing from senior management that this is actually a good thing. This is refreshing that we're getting some real views. We're getting more feedback, more immediate feedback from our employees, because they're basically doing it on a screen. Instead of having meetings and not with everyone. So I think that's pretty big.
It's huge.
And then the other thing I was going to say, Jay, is that the comments are important in the sense that groups you touched on, but groups are kind of broken on LinkedIn right now. And what I like to say is that comments around content are the new groups. They're the new groups on LinkedIn because, and they're kind of like pop-up groups, aren't they? Because you start a conversation and then everyone else piles in. Whether or
like
not
a Reddit thread.
Yes, yeah, exactly, like Reddit. And so whether or not they agree or not, sometimes it's even better that they disagree. I'll give you an example. The third point to back up my case, my business case for having a capitalized name on LinkedIn was that don't do special fonts. If you're thinking about discoverability, not visibility, don't do the special fonts, because on
Android.
some assisting Android, exactly, looks like gibberish. Some assistive devices, right? So some folks who are vision impaired or blind, they're using their special devices, then that also will not work. Now, I said that won't work because that's what someone told me maybe a year ago. Now, some people are saying, well, that's not true, Andy. They capitalized, actually, they said capitalized actually doesn't work on assisted devices. So now that's a debate. Now that's a discussion.
Cool.
Right. And so that's why polls with, 3 options, or maybe just 2 options where, oh, that's not enough for me, Andy. Why did you only give me 2? I wanted C. Where's the C vote? Right. And that's like, yeah, thank you, because now that's spurring more and more engagement and more discussion. more opportunities for me to say, yeah, that's a good point. So, the psychology of engagement is, I think, relatively straightforward.
100%.
And sure, you want to avoid putting stuff out there just for the sake of creating dialogue. I'm trying to inject some LinkedIn learnings
Yeah.
always.
But I think what's interesting, especially with people who are looking to up their game, right? Look at someone like yourself and be like, wow, hundreds of likes, all these comments, 25,000 views in 3 hours, right? I'm never going to get there. Actually, the pursuit of getting to the point where you have those levels of engagement is the real ROI for me, because the learning the information that I get from reading comments, from being part of a discussion, when someone says, hey, actually you were dead right, it's 12 months ago, but hey, catch up, dude, isn't it? There's a new thing. Great, I didn't know that. The next time I do a post, I know that now.
Yes,
I didn't have to sit and read a book or watch 2 hours worth of YouTube on this week's updates. I get to get the knowledge of crowds, and that's a special thing. And that can happen when you've got a following of 100 people or 100,000 people.
That's right. Exactly. You don't have to have a massive amounts of people doing that. It works for the algorithm too. Jet fuel for the algorithm initially is just a hardcore of folks that decide to be active on LinkedIn around, to coalesce around your content. That's all you need to start with. And then it builds, because then the algo will say, okay, well, that tested pretty well. Let's push this out to, the next test. Oh, well, that did well too. We'll continue pushing it until it stops being so attractive, and for the active users. So that's how it works. But you're right. You don't need a big network, and I think it's all about discoverability, isn't it? Because when you're having these conversations, you're learning something new potentially, but you're also meeting new people. I think that's the essence of LinkedIn. You're not getting that when you're reacting, and unfortunately, you're not getting that when you're resharing. You are getting it when you're actually commenting and taking the time to, just to touch people, just to reach out and touch them. Yes, just touch them. It sounds creepy. Sounds creepy.
It does. I'm not going to disagree, but it's what's become awesome about LinkedIn over the last 5+ years. When 5 years ago, you're getting constantly people being like, "This isn't Facebook," and I was like, "Well, then it's just CVs. It's just CVs, which aren't profiles." And it's moved on to now a community of people who have one thing in common, probably, but we're all in a business of some sort of description. And for that reason, we're all having the same sort of hardships, and there's information to be gained all over the place.
Yeah, that's a good point about Facebook. So I think probably about 2 years ago is when I can sort of, I think, measure that it started. There were a lot of folks, especially in my space, in the LinkedIn coaching space, that would say, "Oh, that's too Facebook. This is not Facebook. How dare you? This is LinkedIn. This is professional." I was in the vanguard of that. I was like, "Yes, away with you. Go back to Facebook." And then it gradually dawned on me that this is a tide. All right, it's going to continue to happen. And frankly, this is maybe it's not something that you're into. You're not into that particular content. That cat video doesn't do it for you, right? That oversharing, the aspirational, it's not your thing. However, doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. As long as there's an audience for it, as long as people are responding to it, and it makes them feel better, that's what they want to use LinkedIn for. Good. That's absolutely fine. Why not? Who am I to judge? We're all so judgy, aren't we? We're very quick to judge. I know I am. I'm like the Simon Cowell of LinkedIn, right? With a grey beard. Yes, but not the silly pants. Those weird trousers. It's like, what the? Just normal trousers, dude. Oh, and also stay away from electric bikes. Yeah, don't do the wheelie. Don't do that. You're too old. Anyway, so it's all good. The variety is wonderful too. I dig it, and I like that other people enjoy it.
I think what's cool though is the switch that happened, because at one point people were saying, "Hey, this isn't Facebook on LinkedIn," when actually, when I'm on Facebook or other platforms, right, when I'm not at work, I like to not be at work. Especially since being a business owner, I'm kind of at work all the time. When I do have downtime, I have a place that I can not open, and vice versa. When I'm going to go and kill it, I have a place that I can open and be on LinkedIn and be with the community. So actually, at the same sort of time as people were saying this isn't Facebook, the switch was happening of being like, I don't want to see, I'm not really following businesses on Facebook. I'm not engaging, I'm not looking for a deal for whatever for my business. Whereas if I get that message on LinkedIn, even if it's the same time, Saturday night, 8 p.m., I'm watching the new Andy Foote X Factor on the big screen. And if I get a message through on both, and one was on LinkedIn, I'm going to be willing to have a business conversation. If someone messaged me on Facebook at 8 p.m. on a Saturday about business, I'm like, dude,
yeah.
Even, literally just because that is my space and it's a safe space. And that switch kind of happened almost at the same time as people started to move over to it. And it's made Facebook a better place. Because now that's very B2C and that makes sense. And you've got a B2B place that you can all be in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about your preferences and your usage, what you're comfortable doing, and what you associate one platform with. But yeah, there's definitely, to me, there seems to be this merger of certainly more relaxed, more personal content. I think it's cool, and vice versa. I've built a community of LinkedIn coaches and LinkedIn fans on Facebook, and
cool.
yeah, I mean, it's almost 1,000 people strong, for heaven's sake, and it's a powerful community, and we love sharing, what we know. It's very collaborative and supportive, and the reason I did that was because, well, LinkedIn groups are not so good right now, and so it's my little, revolt, but I did that because I had heard that Facebook groups are freaking awesome, and indeed they are. I mean, I hardly spent any time on Facebook, but it turns out that, I didn't catch that. What did you say, Jay?
They've been awesome for ages. I
didn't know.
Facebook nailed groups a long time ago. They haven't done a huge amount to increase them since, but they are phenomenal compared to any other platform.
Agreed, 100%. And the reason I didn't know that was because I'm like in my lane.
Sure.
I'm a LinkedIn guy. I'm not a social media guy, but guess what? I'm a Facebook groups guy.
And I bet, like you say, if LinkedIn had a kind of better group, would be there as well.
Yeah.
So if people are going out, right, and this applies to everyone. If you've got a following already and you're looking to increase it, if you're a salesperson trying to find new clients, you're trying to get promoted, you want to start increasing your network, right? You want to start expanding the people that you can potentially like their posts, learn from them. They can learn from you, and growing that. When you connect with people, if and when, do you send a message with it? What's your protocol? How do you go about kind of connecting with people?
Yeah, great question. So the way that I do it, and the way that I counsel my clients to do it, is that I tell them that groups is actually, regardless of how down everyone is on groups and how much negative perception there is around groups, I run a bunch of them, and I will always run them until LinkedIn lets me do that, right? And I don't think they're going anywhere. However, I run these groups, and what I can see from these groups is they're still building, Jay, right? So in other words, people are still joining groups regardless of how shit they might be. And we can talk about why that might be, but they're still joining. Now, one of the reasons they're still joining is the one-to-one interaction. Clearly, they join a group so they can interact with other group members. Maybe not do much, in the public commons area of the group, but nonetheless, that one-to-one is still an important facet. Now, in terms of the connection strategy, then yes, that's a perfect way. A perfect way for me to for example, to connect with you. So I don't know you, however, I want to connect with you. Now you're not active, so I can't. Just pretend that you're not active.
Sure.
You're not active, so I can't sort of glom onto something that you've written recently.
Okay, I can't say, hey, great video about imposter syndrome.
Can't do that.
I had that too. Okay, sure.
You haven't done that, not yet. not in my world.
Exactly.
Not in the fictitious example. So what else can I do then for the non-active? How do I reach out to the non-active person that I'm quite keen to connect with? It's as simple as finding out which groups you belong to. Hopefully you do, right? But if you do, then I find out which groups, and then I join, one of those groups, or until I get accepted, and
sure.
then I will say in my connection request, "Hi Jay, we're both a member of X community on LinkedIn, and I share this interest, blah blah blah. You can go into some detail, not too much because you right. And then Jay is hopefully going to think, oh, this guy's not a spammer. He's done some research, and we seem to have something in common. I think it might be worth my while, because we never know exactly whether some connections are going to pan out. It's all about the potential of each outreach via the invite. So yeah, I think that's a solid way of doing it,
Nice.
because
Yeah.
and if the other case is true, if someone is moderately active, then you do your research, and if it's something they've written, then is methodical, systematic, and he's paid attention. He's not going to spam me, and the potential might be there. Because the other thing to do is, if neither of those are true, that someone is not in a group with you, or you can see a group,
Sure.
or if they're not active at content or otherwise, if they're relatively silent, then merely visiting their profile, right? Looking at their profile before the day before you send that connect. Why don't more people do this? Because right, maybe because they don't think people have premium that they can't see, see who's visited, but that's the qualifier as well. If you've looked at me the day before, and then the next day I get a connection request, then I know you've looked at me.
Yeah.
Ideally you take something from my profile, say, oh, I see you went to the University of Dundee. Exactly. I didn't. What was that like? You could just get creative with it. But so that's the way I would do it.
And to start weeding out spammers, what I've started to do, or actually what I've done, and look, I'm even going to say it here live. It's not something I'm trying to keep away. I will speak to anyone who sends me a message like that. Hi, Jay. I'll have a conversation, and then if they, I really will, and I constantly do it, because I remember what it was like when I was trying to get in touch with people, and I'd love to just speak to an MD, like business, decision maker. Yes, I've sent out 500 messages and someone's replied.
Yeah.
And I genuinely will. So I changed my profile, right? And on the About Us, on the very last paragraph of the About Us, I said that I will speak to anyone. It shows that they even give a little modicum of interest in me, any kind of thing. I'm willing to have a conversation.
If they display the interest, right?
Yeah, some sort of something. I saw that you work at GL Pro isn't really good enough because that can be a bot. But I saw you posted a video recently, or you'd like to post, and we both share the connection.
Then they deserve it.
Yeah, how's London treating you in the pandemic? And there's a really easy opener right now.
Yeah.
Like how has lockdown been for you? It's literally, it's global. It's a conversation. Everyone's like, well, hey, right? And it's such a usable thing. So I've put that on there, but I'm going to go a step further now. And I'm going to say the code word is titsy fly. Okay, right? And if you say titsy fly, I'm willing to have the conversation.
Yes.
And if people are still going to send me messages, spam me, I don't even see the point. I don't know anyone who gets a message where it's a pitch and connect, and they just thank God you called,
And agree. And the code work definitely works in terms of figuring out it. If someone, it's a filter. If someone has read your about section, your summary, and my code word years ago was aubergine. I said, right, if you use aubergine in your connection request, you're in. And I did it on purpose because Americans call it eggplant. There's no eggs. There's no eggs in that plant. It doesn't has anything to do with it. Yeah, so that's the important point, and that's that was the other thing, going back to the poll that I put out about capitalizing your name on LinkedIn. A good friend of mine, Kristen Sherry, says that she does it because it tells me when someone used Sales Navigator to send a message to me, and I know to skip it. Now that's important because she understands that essentially automation, be it Sales Navigator or a bot, lots of third-party applications out there that will do this. Not only actually sending the request, but also visiting the profile. So pretty sneaky, some of them. But yeah, when they do that, invariably they grab the first name. If your first name is capitalized, okay, more or less, it could be a bot. Likely to be a bot. Most people don't do the caps when they're typing. But if you add a character, for example, like a period, in that first name field, it's going to pull that over automatically. Then you know for sure, because no one types that. So that's a cool little trick.
I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so much, because there is nothing worse. And the annoying thing is everything we've been talking about, right? Is that people buy from people. We're on LinkedIn, everyone's selling, and also everyone's kind of buying as well, right? I'm out there to learn about what I want and what I want to pay.
Absolutely.
So why not push your brand out and be personal? Why send out 1,000 spam messages from an automated platform when you
It's a
could
numbers
send out
game.
10?
It's a numbers game, Jay. They'll say it's a numbers game. It's like, look, I only need 2% every day, right, for me to pay my bill. So that's why they do it.
Yeah. It's true, which is true.
That's it.
Or you could just contact that 2% with a nice, well thought out message and contact them directly, and then be referred from the people who don't get in touch, right?
Agree with you. And then, you know, what does that do to your brand? They might argue, well, I don't care. I mean, I'm never going to see them again. What about your company, though? Will they care about who you're working for?
That's right. And the thing people forget is I've found so much business in the past from saying, "Hey Andy, how you doing? Here's what we do." Having a conversation about it. You're like, no interest in podcasting. Thanks very much, pal. Great, cool, nice talking to you. Wasn't just selling it. What about that? You know, have a conversation.
Yeah.
3 months later, I get someone message me saying, "Hey, some guy called Andy, I posted out, and he said Jay's a person to speak to," because I built a connection. I'm never going to do that if I just spammed you with messages being like, "Podcasting's cool, yay." You're not going to respond to that and be like, "Oh, I know the podcasting is cool, yay, guy." But it more so, I had a conversation with someone. Oh, who was it? A couple of months ago. Let me have a little look. Oh, yeah, there's some dude over in London. You know, that's and it's weird that people don't seem to understand that, because it's. I think if it gets any more prevalent with the bots and automation, it's starting to override the platform, which is getting a scary thing.
Yeah, I think hopefully LinkedIn, you know, can spot it and do something about it, because one thing that LinkedIn is dead keen on, has always been the case, is that any kind of friction, right, any kind of user unhappiness, obviously depending on the scale of it, they don't like that. It's like, oh yeah, don't f with you know, users not coming back to our platform. That's not going to work. Certainly don't f with messaging. That's not going to work.
No.
So
not after we spent all this money getting it right. So look, we try and keep this relatively short because we are on LinkedIn and everyone's working. But for those people out there who are looking for work, right? I know that what one of the services you provide people is helping them with a resume, a CV. How can, if someone's found themselves suddenly redundant or out of work, what's the first step to making sure that their resume is going to stand out and be, you know, slightly more red than the other 1,000 that are going to come in that day?
Yeah. So I think the first step is that your LinkedIn profile is the new resume. You know, without a doubt, when people do a search on your name, invariably the first search result, the very first, is LinkedIn. It's your LinkedIn profile. Make sure that you have that. You know, go into settings and make sure that it's a public profile, so you're sharing the public version of that, because it could be default, but just double check. Last thing you want is someone to, you know, do a search on your name and not to see anything because they're logged out of LinkedIn. That's what the public profile does for you. So do that. But yeah, your LinkedIn profile page is your resume these days, and I would encourage you to add as much info, as much detail on that to let decision makers actually decide. There's no point holding back. Sure, you don't share proprietary information, right? Anything that's commercially sensitive, don't put it on there. You know, you may have put it on your resume because you know that's slightly safer. But this is obviously, this is public, and then make sure it's looking damn good, right? I want to have a wonderful. We talked about the headshot, right? Is it the best you can possibly do? Good. Next thing, all right? Your slogan. Your headline, how is that actually working for you in the marketing sense? Is it, you know, are you resonating? Are you engaging? Are you the guy that Jay remembered about, you know, seeing that a few weeks ago? Then you've actually, you know, you can tick that box. Job done. Next, think about, observe. I want you to do a lot of observing. I think the temptation is just maybe to dive in for some people, not everyone,
Right.
but observe as much as you can, read as much as you can, particularly, in your field, in your function. And you
Right.
can use hashtags to do that. So use
Okay.
hashtags to find relevant stuff, relevant content, and then look at how other people are engaging. Look at how the people people who are winning, right, the best comments, the most liked comments. That's a bit of a weird one, but what that essentially means is that people might not be engaging with that person, but they
Right.
sure as shit like what he or she is saying. Now think about why. Think about why. Why are they the thought leader in this particular discussion thread? And then keep observing, and then start thinking, okay, I think I have a plan. I'm going to start doing this because it works for this person, and I'm similar to this person, so
Mm-hmm.
therefore it should work for me. Who do I want to get on my radar, right? And then whose radar do I want to get on?
On,
And
exactly.
that's the other thing, right? Wearing my Challenger grey Christmas hat. I used to work for essentially the outplacement firm that invented outplacement services in the States, right? Helping folks to answer, tell me about yourself, right? That's the kind of stuff. But some solid strategies here in terms of how do you go about the job search if you don't have a specific list of targets? Right? How do you go about networking if you don't tell the people that are in your initial circle what specifically you want? You've got to be very specific. You've got to tell them, look, I do this for a living. Hopefully they know that, but I do this, and this is what I'm looking for. These are my dream companies. This is my ideal job. Who do you know? Who can you put me in touch with? Right? Because there is this thing called the hidden. Yeah, there is this thing called the hidden job network, and it's not that difficult. It's not that complex, but essentially it means that often there are jobs out there that you will never know about that will only come through your network. Right? It's not what you know; it's who you know. So important. So you could bang your head against a brick wall all day, every day, just apply for jobs on a job board. Because guess what? Most people are doing that. The secret is to find people who love you, who trust you, and will speak for you, and will put you in touch with other people who trust them and what they say about you. That's how it works. And be very, very specific, be strategic about that, because the more information that you give the people that are willing to help you, the more they are able to help you. That's my advice.
And it's wonderful there, because it's exactly what I was saying in the beginning. No one's going to do this for you. Right? No one is going to go and do this for you. So if you're not going to make it really, really easy for the people right next to you in your smallest circle to be able to put it out there, then you failed already. If you're looking to put yourself out there as a business, a brand, someone looking for work, someone looking for a promotion, if you're not going to go for those people close to you and then start to build what close means, then you're already failing. But the nice thing is, with that close personal group that you've got around you, they're the best people. They're the ones who are like, hey, you spelled your name wrong. Oh, okay, cool. Sweet. Thanks for letting me know.
Right.
And
absolutely.
You can post a bit of content and they can be like, hey man, that's very Gary V. And be like, oh, Jesus, that's what I was going for.
Exactly. And the people, slightly outside of your circle of trust, those fans, those avid supporters, the people slightly outside who the fans are trying to get, you in front of for a coffee. And well, actually, now that I've met Jay, he's actually, he's quite impressive. I feel pretty comfortable putting him in front of my MD. So I'll do that. Those folks, right? They understand also, not only will they look good in front of their MD and perhaps even get a bonus for bringing someone on, right? An asset. They also understand that because he or she has helped Jay, that Jay owes her or him a favor, and it's all about that reciprocity, right? Because that's what that's what the networkers, the professional networkers out there understand. If you help him or her, then that's something that potentially could come back and help you in spades.
And from my experience, nearly always does. Andy, this has been phenomenal. I think you and I could at least do 4 or 5 hours straight, but we do try and keep it short for the LinkedIn crowd. So for those out there who aren't following yet, firstly, you're dumb. You should be following Andy. But for those who aren't, where can they find you, sir?
Yeah, so the obvious place is LinkedIn for sure. That's where I spend the vast majority of my time. And then, the second place would be my website. I would love people to check out linkedinsights.com.
Amazing. And that's Andy Foote with an E. If you see it in capitals, you know you found the right guy. Guys, thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.